All right, sixth grade. Well, we're continuing on here. Lesson 8.3. 8.3 is going to be divided up into a couple of different lessons, and so this is going to be the first one. Just because of the concepts here in Chapter 8, a lot of these lessons I'm going to be breaking up into multiple lessons, into a couple of different lessons, and this 8.3 fits that. So this is going to be the first part of Lesson 8.3. 8.3a is what we're going to call it. And only one set of directions that you're going to be looking at today in this video for this lesson. Graph the number and its opposite. Now that's going to sound familiar with what we did back in lesson 8.1, where we graphed the number and its opposite. The difference is now we're not necessarily just looking with whole numbers. We're going to be looking at fractions, decimals, mixed numbers, all those sorts of things. So our first number is 3/7. And so once again, remember when we think about graphing a number, we're going to think about starting at 0. All right, and that's what we're going to think about. And so we're going to kind of have 0, and then we're going to think, well, okay, we're going to go ahead and make our line. All right, and we use lots of space here, so we know I'm using 3/7, so I'm going to rewrite that up here. And then I'm going to think, well, I know it's positive numbers, and since I'm using 3/7, I want to be smart in the numbers that I put on my number line. I'm not just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because as we know, it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not just those counting numbers. There's all sorts of numbers between 1 and 2, all sorts of numbers between 2 and 3. So there's all sorts of things. So I want to be smart in how I write my numbers to be efficient. So I have 3/7, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, well, we're going to have 1/7, and we're going to have 2/7, and we're going to have 3/7, and we'll go ahead and end with 4/7. 3/7 is what needs to be graphed, so we'll fill that in right there. Then I'm going to come to this side, and we're going to have -1/7, -2/7, -3/7, and -4/7. And the opposite of 3/7 is -3/7. So I kind of fill that in, and that's where we're at. All right? So here we go with -1.2. Well, once again, okay, we're thinking, well, okay, so I'm going to start with 0. Put 0 in the middle, go ahead and make my graph, and I'm thinking, well, how do I want to think about this? Because I could do 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. I could, but that's a lot of numbers. I want to be efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this as 12. And I'm going to count by 2's, but I can't forget the decimal. So I'm going to do 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and then it's kind of like 2, 4, 6, 8. And then for 10, I'll put 1.0, and then I'll have 1.2. And that's the opposite of -1.2. And then I'm going to come over to my negative side, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to have -0.2, -0.4, -0.6, -0.8, -1.0, and then -1.2. And that's the number that I'm graphing. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. Graphing the number and its opposite. So let's look at a couple more before we finish up. We got a couple more here. This next one is a mixed number, 4 and 3/10. So, but it's the same idea where we start with 0 in the middle. We go ahead and make our line. And I'm going to be thinking about this 3/10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get kind of close to the 0 and have 3/10. And I'll space it out a little more because that's only a difference of 3/10. Now I'm going to go up by intervals of 1, 1 and 3/10, 2 and 3/10, 3 and 3/10, 4 and 3 over 10. And that's the opposite of negative 4 and 3/10. So I'll go ahead and graph that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to get a little closer than a full interval. That's going to be negative 3 over 10. Then I'm going to have negative 1 and 3 over 10. Then I'm going to have negative 2 and 3 over 10. Then I'm going to have negative 3 and 3 over 10. Then I'm going to have negative 4 and 3 over 10. That's the actual number. I graph that, fill that in. And there I've got the number and its opposite graphed. All right, this last one, 5.7, 5 and 7/10. Well, once again, I'm going to start with 0 in the middle. All right, and so I have that, and it's 5.7. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of do this here, and I'm gonna kind of get it a little closer, and I'm gonna start with 0.7. Then I'll space it out a little farther, 1.7 or 1 and 7/10, 2 and 7/10, 3 and 7/10, 4 and 7/10, 5 and 7/10. Then I'll do the same thing here with the negatives. Negative 7/10, negative 1 and 7/10, negative 2 and 7/10, negative 3 and 7/10, negative 4 and 7/10, negative 5 and 7/10. The numbers that I'm graphing, well, the opposite of 5.7 is the negative 5.7. And then I just have 5.7 there. All right, that's graphing the number and its opposite, lesson 8.3a. Talk to you later, 6th grade. Bye.